But just tell me how you're thinking about how this whole thing is unfolding. You laid out a bunch of different scenarios. What are you thinking?
Well, if you look at the scenarios I laid out, I spent a lot more time on the blue wave scenario than perhaps what we're seeing right now. Maybe I kind of wish I'd spent more time on the other ones. But I did spend some time. And I think the one thing I think you want to conclude, especially look what's happening in the Senate, that the big downside risks from higher taxes, that seems to be off the table. You're not going to get higher taxes if Republicans continue to control the Senate. I think you're probably going to get some sort of stimulus either way. But the extent that you worry that those big Biden tax increases were going to be negative for after-tax corporate profits, that's not happening.
What about the idea of another tax cut, a middle-class tax cut? I mean, the president has floated it out there. If he wins re-election, he very likely is going to keep the Senate, too.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that the president has floated that idea, but he's not backed that up with a very specific plan or a lot of energy. There's a lot of these ideas which still float out there, whether it's healthcare reform, a middle-class tax cut, infrastructure, that he just doesn't ultimately back up. Listen, I can see like a scenario where there is some sort of, let's say the president wins and Republicans hold the Senate, that you get some sort of infrastructure bill with maybe not the business tax cuts, which are supposed to expire, that those are extended. That could happen, but then you kind of wonder why this stuff already hasn't happened. So maybe more gridlock for the next 4 years. But of course, we've also have President Joe Biden. That's different.
Yeah. Dr. J, I want to go to you. You sometimes are a very quick trader in terms of your time frame. And I'm curious to know, what is the first trade you're looking to put on this morning, whether it be a strategic, tactical one or one that's broader on the indices?
Well, I think especially this will surprise Scott like crazy, Apple, because I think exactly what Mr. Pathakoukas just described as far as taxes and big tech being perhaps more under the thumb of a blue wave. I think this is going to be great for Apple and big tech, quite frankly. And I don't think either Twitter or the New York Times could stand not having President Trump around anymore, Melissa, because he's boosted both of those stocks by his tweeting and by his personality. But what I'll be doing first, I think, Melissa, is on these big pops out of Uber and Lyft. I mean, significant 12, 14% pops. There were massive bets to the upside in both of those stocks on the upside calls that expire Friday. So I think since they expire Friday, Melissa, I'll probably be taking off some of that into the opening today.
Tiff, what about the trade if Biden wins, which is still a possibility? He has a path.
Absolutely.
The Republicans keep the Senate, and the Democrats have, for all intents and purposes, are going to keep the House, and they may have expanded their margin also. Tiffany, what's the trade in that case?
Yeah, so again, I'm really looking at our environment more so than who's president. And I know you want me to answer that question, but I really think that, the focus for a lot of American people is really on, their current environment. We've got a couple kinds of groups of people right now. We have some people that are just kind of like falling off of a cliff. Right, so they're either out of work, they can't afford, technology for their kids to go to school. There's some kids that have, that are not in school right now because they can't afford laptops to be in school, and they have not been in school since this pandemic started. And then you have some people who, have kind of gotten by for like the past, 7 to 8 months, whether that's, because they have like stimulus or they've been able to have that extra unemployment benefit. But, that's run out. And come January 1st, all the moratoriums on mortgage payments and rental properties, all of these things are going to have to be paid. And so I think that is really what people are thinking about. And then you have some people who are in a bit of a different situation, who have been able to save more and have been able to pay off debt. And so I just really think that is what people are thinking about right now.